My dad called while I was closing on my second property. Son, we need $22,000 now. Don't ask why, I said. I can't right now. He hung up. That night at dinner, he announced to the whole family, your brother refused to help. Remember that. I let him finish. Then I slid the closing documents across the table. I was buying you a house. Guess you don't need it. Then my name is Jonathan, and I'm 34. I'm a pilot based out of Charlotte, which means I spend half my life in the air and the other half trying to land softly in my own family. 6 weeks ago, my dad called while I was literally standing in a title office conference room, pen in hand, about to close on my second property. His voice didn't even bother pretending. Son, we need $22,000 now. Don't ask why. I stared at the escrow officer's smile and the stack of papers thick enough to qualify as furniture. I can't right now, I said. I'm in the middle of something. There was a pause, long enough to hear him breathing like I'd offended him by having lungs. Then he hung up. That night at dinner, in front of everyone, he lifted his glass like he was about to toast and instead announced, your brother refused to help. Remember that. The table went quiet in that way. Families get quiet when they're used to cruelty, but still want to pretend it's normal. I didn't interrupt him. I let him finish. Then I slid the closing documents across the table in their crisp manila folder. I was buying you a house, I said. Guess you don't need it. Hours later, when that folder got opened and my dad realized what the address was, everything changed. My dad has always loved two things, being right and being seen as the kind of man who deserves help. He's not evil. That's what makes it worse. He's charming at church, helpful to neighbors, the guy who'll jumpstart your car and then tell the story like he rebuilt your engine with his bare hands. At home, value was a currency. He decided who had it and who didn't. And early on, I learned that be flexible meant be invisible. Micro Scene 1. Childhood math. When I was 10, I wanted a baseball glove. Nothing fancy, just something that didn't feel like cardboard. Dad looked at the price tag and whistled. That's a lot for something you'll outgrow. My older brother, Ethan, got a new bat that same week. I remember standing in the hallway listening. Mom's voice floated out from the kitchen. He needs it for the team. Dad's laugh. Jonathan doesn't even start. I was 10. I didn't know what start meant beyond a game, but I knew what it meant in our house. Micro Scene 2. Teen turning point. At 17, I got accepted into a flight program. It wasn't a golden ticket, but it was a door. I brought the letter home like it was a medal. Dad read it, nodded once, and put it down. So, he said, when do you think you'll grow out of this plane thing? It's not a phase, I said. Ethan walked in, tossed his car keys on the counter, and Dad's whole face changed. Hey, champ, Dad said. How'd the interview go? Ethan didn't even look up from his phone. Fine. Dad turned back to me and shrugged like my dream was a hobby I should do quietly. I learned then. My achievements made Dad uncomfortable unless he could wear them like a jacket. Micro Scene 3. Adult disrespect. When I became a commercial pilot, Dad started telling people I worked around planes. He'd say it with this grin, like he was being modest. One Thanksgiving, I corrected him. I fly the plane. Dad. He waved his hand. Well, sure, you're in there somewhere. Ethan laughed. Mom didn't. But she didn't stop him either. She never did. Micro Scene 4. Used for labor, not loved for presents. 2 years ago, Dad asked me to co-sign a refinance. It'll help your mother, he said. I said no calmly, with reasons and numbers, and a boundary I'd practiced in hotel rooms between flights. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. You think you're better than us now? No, I said. I think I'm responsible for me. He didn't speak to me for 3 months. Then he called like nothing happened, because in his world, time resets everything, except the debts he thinks I owe him for existing. By the time that phone call happened in the title office, I'd already been carrying a secret for months. I wasn't buying a second property, because I wanted to be some landlord guy with a clipboard and a superiority complex. I was buying it because my parents were still renting at their age, And my dad's pride wouldn't let him say the words, "We need stability." He'd hinted. "You know," he said one day, "rent is just throwing money away." Another time, "If I ever owned again, I'd do it right. Somewhere quiet. No stairs for your mother." He never asked. So I made a plan. I found a modest one-story place near their town. 2 bedrooms, a small yard, safe neighborhood, nothing flashy. The kind of house that feels like exhaling. I worked extra routes, picked up flights other pilots didn't want, slept in airports, ate protein bars like they were meals. My realtor, Maya, tried to talk me out of keeping it secret. "Jonathan," she said, leaning on her desk, "surprises are risky with family." "I know," I said, "but if I tell them, my dad will turn it into a performance." Maya didn't smile. "And if he doesn't like the script, he'll burn the stage." I nodded like I hadn't already pictured it. The day of closing, I'd flown in on a red-eye and went straight to the title office with that hollow, wired feeling you get when you've been awake too long, but adrenaline is doing CPR on your brain. The folder sat in front of me. The escrow officer pointed. "Sign here, initial here." And then my phone buzzed. "Dad." I stepped into the hallway because some part of me still acted like his calls were emergencies. That's when he hit me with the demand. $22,000. "Now, don't ask why." I blinked, slow. "What is it for?" I said don't ask. "Dad, are you helping or not?" I thought of the down payment I was about to wire, the payments I'd calculated down to the dollar, the safety I was trying to hand them without making Dad beg. "I can't right now," I said. "I'm in the middle of closing. I have commitments." He made a sound, half scoff, half insult. "So your paperwork matters more than your family." That's not what I... Click. When he hung up, I stood there staring at the phone like it had teeth. Back inside, I signed anyway, not because I was stubborn, because I was done being steered by his moods. That night was a family dinner at my parents' place, one of those everyone's in town gatherings where cousins appear like seasonal allergies. There were 24 people around the table and in the living room, plates stacked, kids running, the TV on mute, like background permission. Ethan was there, of course, sitting close to Dad like a favorite assistant. Mom greeted me with a hug that felt like apology without words. "You look tired," she whispered. "I'm fine," I lied. In the kitchen, my Aunt Linda caught my arm. "Your father's in a mood," she murmured like she was warning me about weather. "I noticed," I said. She squeezed once. Quick. That was as close to support as anyone got in our family without being accused of betrayal. Dinner started loud. Then it narrowed slowly into that familiar tension. Dad waited. He always waited until an audience was secured. Halfway through he stood, tapped his glass with a fork like he was calling for silence. The room obeyed. He smiled, and I saw it. The satisfaction. The control. He said, clear as a headline, "Your brother refused to help. Remember that." Ethan's eyes flicked to mine, quick and smug, like good luck. Mom's face went tight. Someone chuckled nervously. I set my fork down. Dad continued warming to it. "You can fly planes, buy fancy things, act important, but when your family needs you, you're suddenly too busy." My cousin murmured, "Oh wow," like it was entertainment. Dad turned toward me, voice sharpening into the quote he'd been saving. "Must be nice to have money for yourself, not for us." That one hit, not because it was clever, but because it was the same story he'd told my whole life, that my worth was measured by what I surrendered. I felt my pulse in my jaw. I heard my own thought, calm and cold. "Don't cry here. Not here." I stood and walked to the entryway closet. Behind coats and umbrellas was the folder from closing, still sealed, still clean. I'd brought it because some part of me wanted to hand it to them like a peace offering. Now it felt like evidence. When I returned to the table, Dad was still standing, enjoying himself. I didn't ask permission. I placed the folder on the table and slid it toward him. He frowned. "What is this?" I kept my voice even. "Airline even, the thing I was in the middle of," I said. "The thing you hung up on." He stared, then laughed once. "Sharp. You're trying to guilt me with paperwork?" "No," I said. "I'm giving you the truth. The room went so quiet the kids sounded loud in the other room. Dad's hand hovered over the folder like it might bite him. I looked at him and said the line I'd never rehearsed, but somehow had always been waiting in me. I was buying you a house. Guess you don't need it. For a second, Dad's face did something strange, like his pride couldn't decide which mask to wear. Then he scoffed. Buying me a house, he said, loud enough for the room. Listen to him. Ethan smirked. Yeah, okay, Mom whispered. Jonathan, I didn't look away from Dad. You wanted 22,000, I said. I couldn't give you that today, because today my money was doing something else. Dad leaned forward. If you had money, you would have helped. You chose not to. That's the thing about people like him. They don't want the help. They want the obedience. I nodded once. Open it. He hesitated, just long enough for everyone to see the crack in his certainty. Then, with a show of irritation, he tore the folder open. Paper slid out, clean printouts, signatures, the kind of boring documents that change your life. His eyes dropped to the top page. I watched him read. His forehead wrinkled. His mouth opened slightly. He looked up at me, confused in a way I'd never seen. Why is this? He started. I pointed to one line. Right there, the property address. He scanned again, faster. Then his gaze hit the part that mattered. Purchaser, Jonathan, last name. He flipped to another page, then another, like maybe the next one would rescue him from reality. Ethan leaned in. What is it? Dad didn't answer. His fingers trembled, small and furious, as he turned pages. Mom stood up slowly, like her body understood before her mind did. Jonathan, she breathed. I swallowed, steadying myself on the back of my chair. It's a one-story, I said. Near your doctor. No stairs. Quiet street. I set it up so you could move without a fight with a landlord. Dad looked up again, eyes glassy with something that wasn't gratitude. It was loss of control. You were going to? Yes, I said. I was. The room erupted in whispers. He bought them a house? Is that real? Oh my God. Dad stood there holding the papers like they were an accusation. Then he snapped into anger, because that's where he always ran when he didn't know how to be small. So you did have money, he said, voice rising. You just didn't want to give it to me when I asked. I didn't flinch. No, I said. I didn't want to hand you 22,000 in cash with no explanation. It's none of your business what it's for, he barked. It is when you demand it, I said. He slammed the documents on the table. Plates rattled. After everything I've done for you, I cut in quiet. Name one thing you've done that didn't come with a price. The room froze again, like someone had turned off the oxygen. Dad's face reddened. Ethan scooted back, suddenly less amused. Mom's eyes filled, not theatrically, just honestly. Dad tried a new tactic, softer, like he was switching gears mid-grind. Son, he said, reaching for my arm, we can talk about this. You don't have to. I stepped back. That small movement felt bigger than any speech. You don't get to rewrite what you did to me, I said. Dad's voice sharpened. What I did. I'm your father, and I'm your son, I said. Not your ATM. Not your scapegoat. Not the story you tell when you want sympathy. His jaw worked like he wanted to chew through the moment. Ethan finally spoke, trying to sound reasonable. John, come on. Dad just needed help. I looked at him. Did he ask you for the money first? Ethan blinked. No. Did he call you after I said no? Ethan's eyes slid away. Dad snapped. Leave him out of this. But it was already out. The enabling crowd, the aunts, the cousins, the people who always murmured, that's just how he is, were staring like the stage lights had finally hit what they'd pretended not to see. Dad's voice went lower, meaner. You embarrassed me. I almost laughed. That's what you think this is? I asked. Embarrassment? He leaned forward, eyes hard. You think you can punish me with your money? I shook my head slowly. This isn't revenge, I said. This is reality. I tapped the folder. I was going to give you stability, I said. Not control, not secrecy, not whatever that 22 grand was. Dad's eyes flashed. Then he said it, quiet, vicious, meant only for me. But the table heard it anyway. You always were selfish. There it was, the old label, the easiest weapon. And in that moment, something in me settled. Not anger, clarity. I picked up the folder, slid the papers back inside, and closed it. I'm not selfish, I said. I'm finished. I left before dessert. No dramatic exit, no slammed door, just a calm walk to my car while the house behind me buzzed with confused conversation. My phone started blowing up before I hit the end of the street. Dad, come back. We need to talk. Ethan, you didn't have to do that in front of everyone. Aunt Linda, I'm proud of you. Be careful. Mom didn't text that night. She called the next morning. Her voice was small. I didn't know, she said. I know, I replied. A pause. Was the house really for us? Yes, I said. It was. And now? I looked out of the hotel window at the parking lot, at the ordinary morning light. Now it's not, I said. Mom inhaled shakily. He's furious. I'm aware. He says you were dangling it, like a trick. I closed my eyes. That's what he would do, I said. So he assumes it's what I did, Mom whispered. Jonathan, I softened. Not for him, for her. I wanted you safe, I said, but I can't buy safety if it means selling myself. 2 days later, Dad left a voicemail. His voice swung between wounded and threatening like a pendulum. You think you can teach me a lesson? Fine. Keep your little house. But don't come crying when this family remembers who you are. I saved the voicemail. Not because I needed proof for court, because I needed proof for myself of how quickly generosity turns into a weapon in his hands. Maya, my realtor, called. I heard from your mom, she said gently. Do you want to back out? No, I said. I already closed. Then what do you want to do with it? I exhaled. I'm keeping it, I said, but not for them. What will you do? I thought about boundaries the way pilots think about weather. Not personal, just necessary. I'll rent it, I said. Or maybe I'll move my schedule around and use it as my own place when I'm not flying. Maya paused. I'm sorry. Don't be, I said. I'm not. The final attempt came a week later. Dad texted like nothing happened. We're ready to move. Send the address. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I wrote one sentence back. There is no move. The house is not for you, he replied instantly. So you are punishing your mother. That line used to work on me. It used to hook into my ribs and pull. This time it slid off. I called Mom directly. I'm not punishing you, I said, but I'm not rescuing him anymore, she cried softly. And for the first time in my life, I didn't try to fix it by breaking myself. I used to think being a good son meant being endlessly available, always answering, always covering the gap between what my dad demanded and what he was willing to admit. But that wasn't love. That was training. Here's what I learned. People who devalue you don't suddenly respect you when you give them more. They just learn the price of your silence. So I made my boundaries simple and real. I stopped discussing money with my father. I stopped taking calls where the first sentence was a demand. I stopped accepting public humiliation as family humor. And I went low contact, then no contact. When he tried to turn my refusal into a story, my last message to him, short, calm, final, was this: you can talk to me when you can speak to me with respect. Until then, don't call. Then I did the symbolic thing that felt almost too small to matter, but mattered anyway. I took the spare key I'd had cut for him, shiny, untouched, and dropped it into my desk drawer. Not as a threat, as a reminder. Some doors don't get open just because someone feels entitled to walk through them. I didn't ruin my family. I stopped volunteering for a role that only existed to shrink me.